Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. It's great to be with you, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon, as the case may be. The purpose of the webinar today, as you've heard, is to increase your sales intelligence, your IQ related to selling. And as I'm presenting this, I'm going to be drawing on all of the research we've done over the past 40 plus years at Cathcart Institute. And Cathcart Institute is a training and research company that we've been researching basically success in business for all those years. And the areas we focus on are around my books, like relationship selling, the Acorn Principle, the Self-Motivation Handbook, and the many other books that I've written. I have currently 17 books published and 2 more in the pipeline being edited, ready to go. Everything in my company is based on the existence of human potential. And this logo shows an acorn, the seed of an oak tree, which is the most common tree in the United States. And if you look closely at this, this logo, you'll see that the top of the seed is shaped like the letter C. And that stands for Cathcart. And the I, the person emerging from the acorn, stands for Institute, so it's Cathcart Institute. But at the same time, it's showing a person triumphantly emerging from their potential. That's my job, to help you tap more of your possibilities and to realize more of your potential by becoming more intelligent about the things that matter most to you. One of those things needs to be selling. No matter what field you're in, if you're not able to persuade others effectively, then chances are good you won't be making nearly as much progress as you could have made. So when you think about what is intelligence, well, there's 2 ways to look at it. One of it's just raw brain power. And if we look at intelligence as raw brain power, then there's not much we can do about it. We're either born with it or we're not. So we just acknowledge it and then give up. But if you look at intelligence from a more practical standpoint, you'll find that the essence of it is the ability to notice more of the details and the patterns, to make distinctions between things, to know the difference between selling and marketing, to know the difference between relationship selling and transactional selling, to know the difference between how various people like to buy. You know, every person will teach you how to deal with him or her if you learn how to pay attention. And the more intelligent you become about observing people's patterns, the more you can find in their behavior that they will show you in the course of a few minutes of conversation how they prefer to receive information and how they prefer to connect or communicate with people. And everyone has a pattern that's noticeable in that respect. So that's one of the things we look at in relationship selling. There's such a thing as intellectual bandwidth, or basically processing power, that we don't have a great deal of control over. But every person who's not mentally disabled has adequate intellectual bandwidth to deal with the challenges they face day to day. Most of life is not nearly as complex as many people make it out to be. And there are 3 levels of complexity. There's conceptual, strategic, and operational. And the vast majority of life, I would say a good 80%, maybe more, is operational. In other words, most of what we do day to day, week to week, year to year, has to do with moving things from one location to another, you know, like getting up in the morning and moving ourselves to the place where we work. Or like this past week, I literally circumnavigated the globe. I flew entirely around the world from the 1st of June to the 12th of June. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I departed Los Angeles June 1st and flew to Shanghai, China. And while I was there, I conducted some seminars and training. And then I flew to Chengdu, another city in China, central China. And I did some training there, and then back to Shanghai. Then I flew from Shanghai to Moscow, Russia, Russia to Warsaw, Poland, and then to Wrocław, Poland, on a small commuter flight, conducted a presentation for about 5,000 people at a big venue there, and spent a few extra days doing training and taking in the sights, and then flew home directly over the polar ice cap, across Iceland, Greenland, Canada, and through California back to Los Angeles. So I went completely around the world in the last 12 days. Well, the vast majority of that activity, what was required of me in that 12 days, was moving me and my luggage to the location where it needed to be. And the next part of that was strategic. About maybe 18% of what I was doing was figuring out how to apply my ideas and my actions in ways that would help people who had signed up to attend the seminars or to, complete the goals we had set. And about 2% of my work was dealing with the conceptual side of things, the general idea, the main concepts, the ways of looking at items, looking at the world. The same thing's true for you day to day. If you look at selling, only a small portion of selling is about selling people on the general concept of buying your idea. Maybe 18% of selling is about the strategy. In other words, this particular way of approaching the idea or the product or the solution or the service or whatever it is. The vast majority of it is figuring out how to help them pay for it, help them fit it into their schedule, help them make it work for their workflow, or help them become familiar with the product itself. So what I'm saying is, the more intelligent you become about looking at what you're doing and why it matters and which parts of it there are, the more effective you can be. And most of it, a good 80% or more, is simply operational. So we're going to look at the operation of the sales process, but we're also going to look at the strategies and concepts as we go through this. The essence of intellect being making distinctions means noticing more. The more you notice about anything, the more you know about it. If you're talking about the use of your smartphone, the more you notice about your smartphone, the more you know about it and the more effectively you can use it. You notice that the screen is a touch screen, or you notice that the button on the side mutes it or turns the sound on. You notice the various functions of it. You notice how the apps are activated. You notice the patterns in using the keyboard on the screen. The more you notice, the more you know. And then over time, you start to notice there are patterns and principles driving those patterns. And the more you understand those, the more you can make new decisions. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a famous American philosopher, and he said many years ago, if you learn only methods, then you will be tied to your methods. But if you learn the principles that make the methods work, you can devise your own methods. Well, the same is true in selling. The vast majority of people, when they enter the field of sales, simply learn methods. They want to know what words to say. They want to know how to hold their product when presenting it. They want to know how to conduct a demonstration. That's important, but that's beginner level importance. If you want to know how to truly sell, then you need to understand the principles and patterns that make selling work. And I'll guide you through those. You see, your premise selects the conclusion you're going to reach. If your premise is that something's going to work, say an optimistic point of view, then you'll probably find a way to make it work. If your premise is it's an unsolvable problem, then you'll probably give up early. So when you look at mindset, which colors every single thing we do, an optimistic mindset is the only healthy mindset to have. And some people say, well, but no, I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. And I've studied that over the years. Every single person who's ever identified him or herself as a realist in that way has embraced the pessimistic point of view immediately thereafter. In other words, they say, I'm just being realistic. You can't do that, or it's too much, or it's too small, or it's too fast, or too slow, or whatever. See, realism means looking at reality. Okay, but there are two ways to look at reality, optimistically or pessimistically. The only effective way to deal with reality is to look at it, see the obstacles for what they are, understand the realities of risk and reward, but then take the assumption somehow, somewhere, there's a way to make things work out. Look for that way. And that's the whole idea behind selling. You are there to make other people's lives better by providing a solution, by selling them a service, by providing them with the resources they need, somehow helping them solve a problem or enjoy something more or make their life, their world, their business, or their finances better than they were before. So selling is helping. Selling is not persuasion and manipulation of other people, although it involves persuasion. Selling is about helping people and being paid for doing so. So selling is helping people at a profit, and the more people you help, the more profit you will earn. So if you look at selling that way, then instead of who can I sell to today, you should be asking who can I help today? How can I help them? How can I make life better for them? Not what is my product, but how does my product or my service make things better for someone else? That's where selling lives. I first wrote the book Relationship Selling in 1986, and it was the first book of that title ever written as far as I've been able to discover. And the basic idea of the book is that selling should be an act of friendship, not simply an act of persuasion. And when trust between people is very high, then selling's not about getting them to buy. It's about helping them do the right thing, the thing they want to do, the thing that's going to help them the most. So the subtitle, as you can see here, it says Relationship Selling, the key to getting and keeping customers. That's the whole point of the relationship aspect of this. In relationship selling, there are two words, relationship and selling. When I ask audiences at my speeches which word is more important, I get an interesting mixture of replies. Some people raise their hands and say the relationship's more important. And I say, okay, if you build a relationship and you don't make a sale, how much money is that worth to you? And the answer, of course, is nothing. So a relationship without a sale is a social acquaintance. And then I ask, what if you make a sale but you don't establish a trusting relationship? How difficult will the next contact with that person be? Well, the answer is very difficult, because it'll be starting over every single time. You see, a relationship is a connection between people in which value is exchanged. Let me repeat that. A relationship is a direct connection between people in which value is exchanged. So if you're giving them value and they're giving you payment value, then that is a relationship. And the essence of a relationship is mutual. So it's not just one way. In 1986, I wrote the book Relationship Selling, 85 actually, and published it in 86. And in 2002, I realized that many things had changed. For example, the evolution of the internet, the use of email, the development of smartphones and texting and that sort of thing, the ability to communicate with videos and images more easily, the advent of digital transactions transcending paper transactions, And the fact that most sales contacts and sales agreements actually take place digitally rather than face-to-face, although there's still plenty of face-to-face business going on. So I rewrote the book in 2002, and I added the subtitle, The 8 Competencies of Top Sales Producers. I had studied over the 15 or 20 years ensuing the original work on relationship selling. I had included the research of all the top sales producers of the many organizations I had worked with. I've delivered over 3,100 professional speeches and seminars in my life, and I've had the opportunity to work with well over 2,500 different organizations all around the world in various industries. So I had a great deal of research to draw from. And I found that the patterns of top sales producers were very similar across all industries. And so the second version of the book included all of the first version of the book, plus the new research and the discoveries I had made on how top producers reach the top % of their industry or their field with as little as 15 extra minutes a day of focused behavior. And this past year, I developed with Dr. Tony Alessandra, a former college professor from San Diego, California, who owns a company called assessments247.com. Dr. Alessandra and I are best friends, former business partners, co-authors, and he owns one of the world's leading online assessment companies. And we joined with Jeffrey Gitomer, who's a leading sales authority, and co-authored the Sales IQ Plus online assessment. I led the development of that. I did probably 90% of the authorship of it because it's based on my book and concept, Relationship Selling. And the Sales IQ Plus, here's the link if you're interested in it for yourself. You can access it there and purchase either one for yourself or for your entire organization if you choose. But it's an award-winning assessment that I will walk you through in such a way that you understand it whether you take the assessment or not. Today's seminar or webinar is designed to do exactly that. And here are some of the assumptions that are built into this. First assumption is your life and mine are a series of relationships, that we are the connection point between our company, our organization, and our customers or clients. And relationships are either good or not so good. In other words, they're either assets or they're liabilities. You can have bad relationships or relationships with bad people, and that will become a liability to your organization or your career. So a relationship needs to be considered in that vein. Also, if you change the number of relationships in your world, the quantity or the quality of the relationships, or even in the nature of the way you connect with people, then you're also changing your life and your business in a big way. And every relationship has something that is wanted, some desired outcome, some reason for the relationship to exist. So let's look at the essence of relationships. I think it's important to know when connecting with someone, to know whether we are perceived by them to be a persuader who's trying to talk them into buying, or a partner in problem solving who's there to help them. And where I discovered this was many years ago. I was a bill collector. I was 22 years old. This was long ago in the late 1960s. And at age 22, working for a finance company, General Motors Acceptance Corporation, I lived in the state of Arkansas, which is in the southern part of the United States. And my job at age 22 was collecting past due payments and, in worst case scenarios, repossessing logging trucks from the forests in the mountains of northern Arkansas. So at 22 years old, I was going out and calling on people in very remote areas to get them to make payments that they had been avoiding or to take back their truck. which was their livelihood. So this was very dangerous work. And I remember one day I was driving down a deserted logging road in the forest up around Mountain View, Arkansas. And I found the truck and I parked my company car and I walked over to the truck. And this very large, intimidating looking man climbed down out of the truck. And I said, I'm from GMAC and I'm here to get your payment. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know if you've realized it, son, but we're alone in the woods. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, no, sir. I said, and if you intend to get violent, then I will certainly leave because it's not that important to me. But if I leave, the next person you'll see will be the law enforcement officers, and they will come armed, and that won't be a pleasant encounter at all. They will forcibly take your truck. And I remember this one particular occasion, the guy said to me, so what are my options? And I said, well, you could either pay me a partial payment or a full payment, or you could drive your truck back to the dealership and turn in the keys, and I could give you a ride home. And the guy said, well, I don't have the money to make a payment. So here, and he threw me the keys to the truck. And I said, well, I don't know how to drive that truck. He said, that's no longer my problem. I said, actually, sir, yes, it is. He said, how's that? I said, well, if you give me the keys and walk away, then I'll go back to town and get somebody who can drive the truck, come back out here and retrieve the truck. But this is a small town, Mountain View. This is where you live, and you've lived here for a long time. You know the dealer from whom you bought the truck. You see him every week in town. He said, yeah, that's true. I said, if you do this way, every time you see the dealer in town, you will avert your eyes and walk on the other side of the street to avoid contact with him because you will feel ashamed. But if you drive the truck back to the dealership yourself, and I follow you, and you walk in and you turn in the keys and you say, I'm sorry, I can't make the payments right now, then you retain your dignity. I'll give you a ride home. And next time you're in town, when you see the dealer, you can just say good morning and look him in the eye, because you won't feel ashamed of what you've done. You've only had a bad situation where you couldn't afford payments. And in that case, the guy actually drove the truck back to the dealer, turned in the keys, and I gave him a ride home. Interestingly, on the way home, he told me if I ever needed anyone to drive a truck for me, I could drop by his house and he would do it. So he went from being my adversary to being my colleague and my helper. Now, I didn't talk him into buying. I didn't put on high pressure. I didn't try to intimidate him. I was simply looking for a way to survive my day-to-day work and to help this guy. And when he realized I was actually trying to help him, thinking in his best interest, then he cooperated with me. Well, the same thing's true if you're selling a multi-million-dollar software application or service contract to another company, or if you're selling an automobile or selling a computer to someone. The same thing is true. If they feel that you're trying to persuade them, they will resist. If they feel that you are their partner in problem solving, that you're trying to help them, then they'll cooperate. So the energy behind this entire thing is a big part of the process. When tension is high, trust is low. trust goes away. So we should do everything we can to deal with people in the way they prefer to connect and communicate. Courtesy and personal conversation before they get right to business. Some people prefer to move rapidly. Some people prefer to move slowly. At the way they prefer to receive information. Some people want their information in great detail, and they want you to walk them through every step of the process. Other people prefer their information summarized and given to them as one main idea. Then you provide details later. Some people prefer to hear stories and examples and see demonstrations. Others prefer to see manuals and technology and research results and technical data. Provide the information the way they want the information. See, what your customers experience when they're dealing with you is the person like you or me that they're dealing with, the people they're dealing with, the processes they go through in dealing with us, and the products or the services that we provide to them. But what they remember most is not the person, not the process, not the product. What they remember most is the way we made them feel as we were dealing with them. Feelings matter immensely in sales. So in relationship selling, the basic premise of the new book, which is the old book plus the new research, is that every phase of the sales cycle calls for its own specific set of skills. And a set of skills is what I call a competency, because as you develop a set of skills, say, let's say for preparation, then you have become competent at sales preparation. And as you grow each skill set, your potential for sales success expands. So let's look at relationship selling and identify each of these skill sets. First, and this follows the sales cycle absolutely straight up, logically. First thing you have to do is sales preparation. Get ready to do your job well. That's the goal. Be prepared to do your job well. Not just prepared to do your job well. Then target the right people. That means don't just go out and make sales contacts, or don't just call on random people, but target the ones who, if they say yes to you, you will end up with a great deal of successful business from that source, okay? So targeting the right people, the goal of that should be talking to the right people in the right way at the right time. And then connecting with people is the next step. So once you've made a connection or a contact with someone, what you want to do is connect with them in so you're trustworthy. And then you want to assess. Salespeople assume instead of assess. They assume this is what you want and they launch right into a sales presentation. I believe that's foolish. I think what we need to do is make sure that as we connect with someone, we probe and we ask questions in the right way, in courteous ways, of course, in targeted ways, so that we are asking questions that will reveal what they need and what they want. Because a lot of times what someone wants is not necessarily what they actually need. And in that case, we need to help educate them. In other cases, what they need may be less important than what they want. So we sell them what they want. So that's, that's a phase that needs to be done well. Beyond that, the next step is to solve their problem. This is where the typical sales presentation comes in. But it's not about presentations, it's about problem solving. So what we need to do is present our ideas in such a way that they see, oh, yeah, I see. If I do this, then I get the benefit you're talking about. If I do this, my problem goes away. If I do this, we save money. If I do this, things get better. If I do this, I have the enjoyment of your product or service. So sales presentation is about showing people how you can solve their problem. Now, the goal of a sales presentation is not showing. The goal is understanding. In other words, them understanding and agreeing, yep, what you're proposing does in fact solve my problem, fill my need, meet my desires. So the purpose of a presentation is to cause the effect we want, not to put the focus on the presentation itself. Next step is committing to the sale, to confirm that the person does in fact want to buy from you. Okay? So confirming the sale, they call it closing, and that's something I have a little bit of a problem with, because nothing closes. In sales, you don't close the sale, you confirm the sale. You don't close a person, you confirm a purchase. And nothing closes. You don't want their mind closed. You don't want a closed market. You don't want cases closed like a legal situation. What you want is a commitment of them to buy from you and a commitment of you to provide services or products to them. So it's a commencement, not an ending. And that's why I call it commit or confirm the sale, confirm the commitment to buy. Next is assuring that they're satisfied and that they stay satisfied. That's two parts. Assuring that they're satisfied now, that they made a good choice to buy from you, and then assuring that they understand what's next and what happens later so that they remain a loyal buyer or loyal customer for you. Okay? And then the final step in the sales cycle, the final set of competencies, is around the stage we call managing sales and managing yourself as a sales professional. And that involves a number of things. Self-management also involves self-motivation, to keep yourself doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. It means managing information, managing follow-through, seeing to it that all the parts work. Now, let's go back to the concept of tension and trust. When does relationship tension emerge for the seller? And when does a relationship tension emerge for the buyer? See, for you, the seller, in the preparation phase, there's very little tension. In the targeting phase, that's still planning, research, that's very little tension. Where your tension tends to go up is when you connect with people, when you make the call, when you receive the call, when the person answers the phone, when you walk in the door. That's when your tension goes up. So the reason you need to be really well prepared for what you're going to say and how you're going to say it and what you're going to do in those first few moments is because you're going to be more nervous at that time. Now, if you've got a good structure for asking questions and probing to determine what someone's needs are, then the assessment phase of selling causes your tension to go back down. And since you're doing a familiar presentation, your sales presentation is usually a low tension activity for you. Where your tension goes up again is when you're going to ask them to buy. So when you're trying to ask for a commitment, your tension goes up again. That's why that phase of selling, confirming the commitment, needs to be as well scripted as it can be for you. And then assuring satisfaction, of course, your tension goes down, and managing sales, your tension goes down. But let's look at what happens for the buyer. The buyer doesn't even know you exist while you're doing preparation and targeting. But when you make contact with them, their tension is high. Notice their tension's high, your tension's high. That's a formula for disaster if you're not well prepared. During the assessment phase, it's a normal conversation. You probing, them answering. If you're not probing too intimately, then it'll go well and the tension will remain low. Then when you start your sales presentation, their tension goes up a little bit. When you ask for the purchase, their tension goes up a lot. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be spending money or making a commitment here. So you can see your tension and their tension are high at the same time. And then assuring satisfaction, at first their tension is low because they feel, it's over with, I bought this, okay. And then they start thinking, wait, Was this a good decision? What have I done? Oh no. And their attention goes off the chart if you don't follow through in the appropriate way. So looking at the 8 skill sets or competencies of relationship selling, in preparation, it's having the skill set that makes you more intelligent about preparing for the sale and preparing yourself for selling. In targeting, it's targeting who you're going to call on and targeting how, what strategy you're going to use to approach them. Connecting emotionally and intellectually, head and heart. Assessing the situation, needs, and the person's wants. Solving involves educating them about your product and what it'll do for them, and then collaborating, getting dialogue going so they feel ownership in the solution. Commitment means getting them to commit to the solution that you're offering, but also getting them to commit to take action now so that you're really making a sale, not just getting agreement. Assuring that they're satisfied, that's the on the spot at the moment thing, and assuring that they remain loyal and you remain loyal to them, that's more important. That's the ongoing satisfaction. And then managing sales and managing yourself. So those are the 8 competencies of relationship selling. And if you look at this as a rating chart with 0 at the center hub and 10 at the outer perimeter on each of these scales, what the sales IQ assessment does is it gives you a structure of questions, scenarios, where you answer and reveal how effectively prepared and how deep your understanding is in each of these areas. And so you get a ranking on each one. So preparation, targeting, connecting, assessing, solving, commit, assure, and manage. But things that are measured tend to improve. So if we're measuring what causes sales to increase, let's look at the 2 overriding measures that preclude all the rest of this. 1, sales will increase based on the number of contacts we make with people who can say yes, and the number of those conversations that focus on the benefits of how we can help them. So it's not just contacts, it's contacts with decision makers, and it's not just conversations, it's conversations that focus on how we can help them for pay. You measure those 2 things every day and keep an ongoing chart, a record of those, you'll be able to track a direct cause and effect relationship between your sales activity and your sales results. So to become more intelligent about selling, let's notice even more. And I'm going to do an information overload on this slide. I just want you to see how much there is to know in each of these categories of selling. See, there's sales preparation, but that's external and internal preparation, self-preparation, mental and physical. Groups, who are you going to call on? Individuals, how are you going to call on them? Strategies and tactics. Connecting, how do you become credible and trusted by them intellectually? How do you do enough sales activity to be making the right number of contacts? How do you generate the relationship and the trust you need? Okay. Probing and assessing and understanding, empathizing, educating the person, showing relevance to them, personalizing and involving them, summarizing, negotiating details, dealing with concerns they have about, maybe that's too much money in their mind. Maybe it's not the right product. I don't know, but it involves a number of skills. And then reviewing what you've talked about, following through, making sure they get what they thought they were getting. Upserving, which means giving them more satisfaction. And recovery, if there's a problem, solving the problem. Sales management means managing your resources and information, learning more, and personal growth and personal motivation. I am the same age as former President of the U.S., Bill Clinton. And when I was in the White House one time on a tour, he came out and met with our group. And someone in our group said, "We're professional speakers, but sir, so are you." And he said, "Yes, half my job is keeping people in the right frame of mind." When you think of it, for you and me, isn't half our job keeping people in the right frame of mind toward our product, toward their need? My friend, the futurist Daniel Burris, who wrote Flash Foresight, said it's a mistake to assume people know what they want, because if they don't know what's possible, they'll ask for too little. So we need to show people the possibilities. Focus on their needs. Lead with their need if you want to succeed. Tell them that what this means to you is this, and then tell them stories. Give them examples, illustrations, actual real world descriptions of the result or the outcome that we're focusing on. And a lot of people will teach you to focus on upselling, which is increasing the size of the satisfaction. If you're buying a hamburger at McDonald's, they say, do you want fries with that? Do you want potatoes with that? Well, that's about increasing the size of the transaction. But I say focus on upserving, meaning increasing the amount of service. Focus on their needs, and don't just say, do you want these extra features? But say, let's look at how we can make this even more satisfying for you. You see, when you find meaning in what you do, when you see something that's satisfying, you bring more value to what you do and you want to be involved with it more. This is a picture of me involved with a Opportunity Foundation school in Bogota, Colombia, where I did a presentation to raise money to help the kids from the barrio, the kids from the poor area, to get a good education and a better life. And my presentation was much stronger because I felt the connection with those kids. We need to give people, through our stories and examples, an experience of what it means to get the value from us. And it's not what you know that counts. Information is important, but information's on the internet too. It's who's glad that they know you, who is happy they're connected with you. The relationship intelligence is using human connections effectively to achieve the outcome desired by the people involved. So ask yourself every day, what kind of habits, new habits, do you need in selling in order to bring about the future you want? And take a look at the behavioral economics of each behavior. Knowledge has certain payoffs. What knowledge helps you the most? Attitude has certain value. Which attitudes are the best ones for you? Skills, which skills are the ones you should be cultivating next to be more successful? And which habits should you be incorporating in your day to make every day more successful? And then ask yourself every day, how would the person I'd like to be, the more successful, more enlightened me, how would that person do what I'm about to do? With that daily question, you will keep yourself focused on learning all of the elements that make you more intelligent in selling. And if you want to drill down on this and get your own sales profile, go to the link here and get your own sales IQ assessment, and it'll give you even more detail. I hope what we've done today is give you a good understanding of how to increase your own intelligence about selling. Because what MILE is trying to do for you, the Madinah Institute, is providing for you resources so you can educate yourself to be more intelligent about leadership, about sales, about management, about the many things you deal with professionally day to day and personally day to day. And it's a privilege for me to be your presenter, and I look forward to working with you more, and I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have. Do we have any questions at this point?
Well, thank you very much. Folks, we are now open for question and answers. So if you have any questions, you could always insert your questions in the question box, or you could equally raise your hand. There's a hand icon available on the webinar console, so please click on it if you want to talk directly to the speaker. We go to the first question. There's a question already in the question box. How is relationship selling different from most other selling methods?
Good question. Thank you. The way it's different is the emphasis is not on the sale. The emphasis is on the value of the purchase to the recipient. In other words, the relationship matters because you care about the other person or their organization. And relationship selling considers the relationship a vital element, not simply a tool to be manipulated. Whereas traditional selling is all about product, price, place, and promotion. It's all about things. Relationship selling is about human connections and ongoing value.
Well, thank you very much. We have another question in the box. What is the best way to make others glad that they know you?
Well, people determine whether they like you or not, whether they're glad that they know you or not, based on the value they feel they're receiving from you. If you are a person who pays genuine attention to other people, that acknowledgement by you it feels valuable to them. So that's one way we do that. Another is if you are the sort of person that really does your homework and you make sure that you provide a very professional service every time you're working for someone else, then the reason they feel glad to know you is because you make their world a better place. They don't have to worry about you being prepared or knowing what you're talking about. They can trust you, and you will be helping them. So the way to make people glad they know you is find out what matters to them. What do they care about? What do they want? And then look for a way to help them get it.
Thank you very much. Another one, when you are intimidated by powerful executives, how do you generate confidence to make a sales contact?
That's a very common scenario for salespeople and even executives across the world. When you see a huge office or a big, important looking title after someone's name or before their name in the case of royalty, then it's easy to be intimidated because you get into the mindset of feeling that you have to be perfect. And that's the problem. We don't have to be perfect. We have to be valuable. We have to be willing to do our part, to do the right thing, to be helpful to the other person. If we show them respect, the appropriate amount of respect, not subservience, where we make ourselves to be so little that we don't matter, but show respect and acknowledgement to the other person, and then focus on helping to solve their problem or fill their need, then we'll be treated more like a professional. Now, some people use a lot of powerful behavior to intimidate other people, thinking that somehow that gets them a better deal or gets them better treatment. And in cases like that, there's not a great deal we can do about their behavior. But we can realize that it's not us that's the problem. It's them. We're not the issue here. It's their behavior. So don't let their behavior determine whether you respect yourself enough to do the right thing and behave appropriately. One of the things that I do whenever I'm dealing with someone that appears to have a great deal of power is I will thank them for their time and their attention, but then I'll focus immediately on their needs. For example, I might say, "Sir, I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. The reason I'm here," and did you notice that I almost instantly transitioned into focusing on filling their need? The reason I'm here, and then I'd immediately say, is to deal with this or to bring you that or to whatever, and I would be talking about solutions.
Thank you very much. Another one, normally in the first meeting, it is recommended not to talk about your product or service directly. If that is forbidden, then what sort of questions or dialogue normally we should initiate for indirect selling?
Well, that's a very interesting cultural scenario, because if it's considered inappropriate to talk about your product or service directly, you still need to understand that the nature of this connection between you and the other person is not a social connection, it's a professional connection. So the purpose of it is for you to be of service to them at some point along the way. If there are protocols in place that call for you to not talk about your product or service directly, then I would encourage dialogue that helps them reveal their needs, their experience with other products or services, or value that they're receiving or hoping to receive, their goals, their aspirations, what are they wanting in the future, what are they looking forward to, what's next for them, what are some of the things that seem to take the most time away from the things that matter most to them, what are the distractions. Just encourage a dialogue around things that reveal how you might be able to help them. And then, I don't know, I need more specifics to be really direct in answering that question, because I can answer it situationally, but conceptually, I think what I provided there is probably the best start.
Thank you. So let me move to another one. How should one talk on the phone to secure an appointment for a possible sales meeting with a prospective client?
Well, when you are talking directly with the person with whom you will be making the sales presentation, the sales presentation has begun. In other words, when you're talking to a potential buyer, that's a sales presentation, even if all you're doing is seeking an appointment. Now, the worst thing you can do in the first contact with someone like that is try to sell your product, because that's not the goal yet. The goal of that first contact is to book the appointment. So what you need to do is show them reasons to want to talk with you. Give them reasons. Talk about benefits you can provide for them, or help them identify issues that they're concerned about. Show them some justification for wanting to book a meeting with you. If, on the other hand, you're talking with a clerk or an assistant or somebody who does the scheduling for them, then I would say the same thing. Emphasize the benefit or value that they will receive by allocating this time to visit with you.
Thank you very much. Another one. Are the cold calling techniques dying?
Great question. And I'm glad you said the dreaded phrase, cold calling. In the old days of selling, sales were done almost 100% in person. And salespeople went from door to door, business to business, home to home, making sales contacts. And in no case in the old days did they call in advance. So they were always a surprise. Their arrival at the door was always a surprise, and it was an interruption of something. It was an interruption of work, or an interruption of rest, or an interruption of thinking about something else, but it was always an interruption. And so the selling techniques evolved around that model. And salespeople were taught to put their foot in the door so that the person couldn't close it quickly. They were taught to, they jokingly said, put your head in the door so you can keep on talking if they slam it shut. But the whole point was selling was telling, selling was talking. That's no longer the case. And it never should have been. And so cold calling implies that something is cold, right? When you say, well, a new call on somebody is cold. No, it's not. It's only new. A new call or a first call on someone that you've never met before is only a new or a first call. It needn't be cold. And I think it's destructive to use the word cold in that context. I think we should eliminate the use of the term cold call and just replace it with new call or first call. Some people say, well, make them warm calls. No, that's just silly. That's the same thing, just treated in a different way. But all it is a new call. And so you should have a protocol for new calls that quickly establishes that you respect the other person and you're hoping to be helpful. And then show them how you might be helpful if they continue to talk with you. So have a structure for your first contacts, your new contacts, that allows you to get into a dialogue where they want you to continue to talk because you also listen. We've all had the case of the telemarketers who call and just talk and never listen. And they're thinking that if they talk long enough, we will say yes and bye. And of course, that's not true. We don't. We just get irritated and insulted, and we want to terminate the call. And so those kinds of calls end up being actually cold, meaning no feeling of caring at all, calls. And when the call is cold and you don't care, then the other person wants out of that call. So that's the way to approach it. Don't do it at all. Just make new calls and first calls and forget the use of cold calling.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. That really brings us towards the end of the webinar. Any quick concluding remarks that you would like to give before we dismiss out?
Yes, I would say that if we recognize that every subject in our life has related to it a level of intelligence, we're either intelligent about how to operate a car or a computer, intelligent about how to deal with other people, intelligent about the business we do, or we're not. And intelligence can be increased by noticing more, noticing the patterns, understanding the principles that make the patterns work. And once we do that, then we can develop the specific skills for each aspect of what we're doing. That set of skills is known as a competency. The more things we become competent at doing, the more intelligent we become about the field in which we're operating, the more successful we will be, and the happier our customers will be that they've chosen to do business with us. So thank you very much for hosting the webinar. Thank you, Madinah Institute and MILE. It's a pleasure to be a part of this experience.
Thank you very much. And I really want to thank you on behalf of MILE, the Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship, for taking the time to deliver this live webinar. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Jim Cathcart. And thank you all of those who participated in this webinar. We are recording it. Please stay tuned to webinar.mile.org. With that note, we'd like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.